And hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. Sorry for the long absences. Um, I had other things to do, but we are back. We are getting into another review, and here we'll be kicking off my TV series review. Today's topic. We'll be reviewing. Ladies and gentlemen, drum roll, please. The OC. Just a quick and brief background. The OC was a teen drama, almost soap opera series that ran for 4 seasons from 2003 to 2007, which was pretty much in the early 2000s. It was created by Josh Stewart. Sorry if throughout this video if I pronounce any names wrong. And this series is regarded as one of the greatest teen shows ever. Even to this day, it's still regarded as one of the greats. And it was also, I think you could argue, one of the very first that popularized the idea of a teen soap opera. So, go with me, watch that. The series centers around a teenager by the name of Ryan Atwood. Ryan Atwood, a troubled yet gifted teen from a broken home, who ends up being adopted by a wealthy family, the Coens. And throughout the series, he has to deal with the life of being the outsider, and also has to somehow be a part of the higher class world of Newport. So that's basically it. A whole bunch of drama. It's a teen show, and that's pretty much the basic. And I'm pretty much sure all teen shows are like that. But the fact that the main character is a troubled teen, a troubled youth, I absolutely love that premise in general. The cast. Kicking off as our series lead is Ryan Atwood, portrayed by Ben Menkenser. Sorry if I have pronounced any names wrong. He portrays the series lead, a very convincing one. I happen to know him from the TV show Gotham as Jim Gordon, who I thought he was really great in that role. Here we have Seth Cohen, portrayed by Adam Brody, arguably the show's breakout character, and was one of the first, what you would call, adorable characters. And that is, they are nerds, but they are surprisingly cool. And he was also one of those nerds that just was great with the witty banter. And I don't think any other character of that has come close in modern culture, other modern teen shows. No one has come to even remotely top that. Rounding up the series lead female interest, Marisa Cooper, portrayed by Mischa Barton. Again, sorry if any of these names have been pronounced wrong. And rounding up, Summer Roberts, portrayed by Rachel Bilson. Another just fantastic for many of these teens, like these young actors portraying these teens. I thought was really great casting choice. And for these four, only 3 would be in all 4 seasons, where sadly Marisa only there for the first 3 seasons. Luke Ward, portrayed by Chris Carmack. He was a main character in season 1 before having a guest appearance in season 2. We have Taylor Towson, who was portrayed by Autumn. She appeared in season 3 of the show and continued into season 4. So she was introduced quite late into, well, not really quite late into the series, but she was introduced quite late into the series. And another female interest for Ryan Atwood. Rounding out the rest of the teens is Caitlin Cooper, who was portrayed by Shaylee Ward in the first season, was absent from season, and then the character was absent from season 2 to the point of almost becoming a forgotten character. She would later come back in season 3, and she would from then on, for the rest of the series, be portrayed by Olivia Holland, who, and of course I happen to know this actress from the TV show Arrow, as Oliver Queen's sister, Speedy. Speedy is her nickname, Thea Queen, basically the character's name. Rounding up what's left of the characters is Anna, portrayed by Samaya Armstrong, introduced in season 1 as a main and continued to make guest appearances throughout the series. Then, of course, we have Alex, portrayed by Olivia Wilde, introduced in season 2. And this cast is just with the teen aspects of the show. Coming up with the males, well, the adults characters from the show, we have Sandy Cohen and Kristen Cohen, Seth's parents, portrayed by Peter Gallagher, sorry if these names are pronounced wrong, and Kelly Rowan. Great casting there. Here we have Jimmy Cooper, portrayed by Tate Donovan, who was introduced in season 1 and continued until the character was kind of phased out of the series. Julia Cooper, portrayed by Melinda Clark. Again, just like with the Coens, she too would appear in all 4 seasons of the show. And then, of course, we have Caleb Nichol as our last character, portrayed by Alan Dale, and pretty much would be a main throughout the first 2 seasons of the show. Until her, again, I'm trying to really not spoil much with this series, with this review, but unlike movies, you really kind of have to reveal stuff for a TV show. So from this point on, there will be spoilers ahead. Also, the formatting for a TV show review for my videos will be different, as it's different for a movie. I mean, for a movie, it's easy to keep the ending to yourself. But for a TV show, you have to kind of give away a season's end, like season's final, so that way it makes sense following into the next season. But overall, I'm trying my best. Like I said, these are formatted differently. I will do a season. I'll recap like some important events in each season, what I felt about the season, and then of course there will be a moment dedicated just to the final episode of the series itself, which I feel for some episodes you need to have that final. You need to have that final. That episode, this bit dedicated to the final episode. It's, shows, did the series go out with a bang or with a whimper? And of course we get to further more of that in the review. So first off, season 1, important things that happened in that season. First of all, the relationships. First off, the one thing I always liked about season 1, from the get-go, we were introduced to these characters really well. The Cohen, how Ryan fits in with the characters, the dynamics. First off, how he and Seth almost immediately bonded and had an almost brother-like relationship. How he bonded well with Sandy, and in a way, Sandy almost became the father that Ryan deserved but never sadly got. And also the relationship with Kristen was also very interesting, almost to the point where she was almost, you could argue, a bit of a, the B word almost at times. But it's not to the point where she's cruel. She's just thinking of her family's safety, and eventually warms up and accepts Ryan as his own. But of course, not all characters were like that. And of course, Marissa, who was dating Luke at the point in this first season, kind of is infatuated by him almost, and it's almost like love at first sight for both characters, but of course they're too macho to kind of come out with it. Of course, Seth's interactions with the other characters, like Julie. Of course, Julie didn't like Ryan from day one because he's a he's born from the worst. He's from the worst. He's from a trailer park. He's from the poor side, which is almost hypocritical because that was her upbringing too. But I guess because she's kind of ashamed of that was her upbringing, she doesn't want that. I got to give credit to the fashions sense with the female characters in the show. I really do like that. It really captured the time period they were going for. Another thing I also liked about this season that it introduced well was the relationships between Marissa and Ryan, how that love story would be built essentially throughout the first 3 seasons of the show, and also, just how it was built up towards it, so much drama between that, but not to the point it was forced, but it sort of came very slowly for me. But of course, for that, this whole season, for me personally, the relationship I was absolutely ecstatic to watch was between Seth and Summer, and how that was built. I found that to be absolutely fantastic. The character, it was just great from the get-go between those two. Arguably the reason why sometimes when you go to watch certain shows, you watch it for a couple to finally get together. And we got that from Ross and Rachel in the 90s. But for me, Seth and Summer were just great. They just worked well with each other. And I liked that I just liked that the characters continued to go with that throughout the series. Anything I disliked in this season? No. Honestly, season 1 was really strong. And if I was to personally rate this season, I give it a 9 out of 10. Mostly because, again, understand, I'm a huge fan of teen dramas, but really, I've only become a fan of teen dramas now. That always wasn't the case. So that's kind of why it's only a 9. But it's still a very solid season. 9 is still a good number, though. But I can't really bring myself to give it a 10, mostly because, I don't know. Part of me really doesn't want to give it a 10, but I really feel it deserves a solid 9. Season 1 was a really good introduction to arguably a great series. Yeah, and nothing really bad really ended up in this series. Oh, before I forget, another thing was also introduced in this season, which I found to be arguably the first time we ever got a cougar. My exposure to a cougar character, of course, Julie, had an affair with Luke. And Luke's trouble and the deteriorating relationship between Marissa and Luke, I found to be pretty entertaining and fun too. In a sort of like drama wise, and that was really fun and interesting to watch. And yeah, also gotta admit, I like Luke's character development throughout the first season and how I felt that it wrapped up perfectly at the end of the season. He hates Ryan, and they have a rivalry. But you see a moment that Luke's not 100% of the douchebag, but there is good moments. I like how Seth never liked Luke, mostly because Luke always picked on Seth, but of course they would eventually grow to become friends in a way. The band, and I like how Luke's character evolved from that douchebag to friend, but kept screwing up and screwed up big. And he even had some, and I like this episode where we just dedicate to his family life, and we find out an event happened really made you feel sorry for Luke and all the crap he's getting at home. You're just really sorry. Also liked how this season also introduced us to what to expect from the series, and not just the supporting characters, but also the environment, that sort of toxic high class society life that you would expect. Yeah, so season 1, very solid. I give it a 9. Season 2 I felt was still strong. It continued. Okay, things that came out of this season. First off, they continued the relationship stories with Summer and Seth, Marissa and Ryan. Of course, we got introduced to Caleb's illegitimate daughter in this season. I found to be a really nice touch. And a really, and just really something really fun. I think it was this season. Actually, it was this season. Another thing I also liked was when we got to see we got to meet Sandy's like ex from the past, and how that was played out, and how that would affect his relationship with Kristen. I found that, like, out of all the adults on the show, we can agree that the Coens were definitely the best parents on this show. Yeah. And I like how that was handled very realistically, handled well, and the character of Sandy was kind of slowly, like, we're getting more of an insight to this character than we've ever in the series, than he's ever been in the series. Yeah. Another thing also was Marissa and Alex's relationship. I think, sorry about that, I found to be arguably, correct me if I'm wrong, really, like, if you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was the first time we ever had a lesbian couple in teen drama history. Correct me if I'm wrong if it's ever happened before. I would love to find out it's not the case. In fact, I want to know, was that not the case? But also, I really found that to be coming out of a little bit out of nowhere, but at the same time, makes sense. And yeah, and of course, there's the okay. I'm really going to spoiler territory, but at the end of the season was Caleb's death. Yeah, I kind of felt that honestly, the life that Caleb's been living, it was coming to that point. You know, that he was never going to make the end of the series, and I think out of all the characters, he was the one that was never meant to have a happy ending. Yeah. And of course, we get introduced to Ryan's brother, and the character dynamic there I found to be another interesting character dynamic, another fun. You think when we meet him, he's just like another Ryan, but we find out not quite. He's more of a hood than Ryan ever was. But then again, when you see that, you can at least get where it was. Julie, of course, is as also with the Cooper family in this season. The characters were becoming like the Coopers were Julie was becoming more the wicked witch of the West, and of course Marissa, again, in each season she's constantly going through highs and lows. And I think this was the season where Jimmy was kind of phased out of the show. Yeah, so it was just, yeah, like that, really. Season 3. Season 3 is often considered the worst season in the show's history, and that's because of the network interfering with what they want for the series, what they want this show to be. So really, season 3 honestly had too much drama with the events of season 2, with a certain shooting which resulted in Marissa not going to school for quite a while, the private school, and having to go to public school where she would meet a whole bunch of characters. Again, I won't spoil them because you have to watch it for yourself. I'm trying to. Here we also get introduced to Taylor, a eventually, or another standout character in the show, and become a huge character in season 4. And here I like that Taylor's relationship, how she gets introduced to Summer. Despite the fact she does become like a bit of a bitch, she slowly evolves to become a likable character, becomes Summer's rival, and then she has a crush on Seth. I don't get how the hell Seth, a nerd character, gets girls in this show. He ends up dated Anna, who was introduced in season 1, then gets Summer, then gets Alex, then gets Taylor having a crush on him. Again, I don't get how the hell he does it. I want to know, because again, just wow. Taylor's character was really fun, and for me, one of the highlights of season 3. Here we also get introduced to a new Caitlin, and her character is definitely interesting. She starts off as a mean girl, but then slowly evolves. Well, she's still a little bit of a mean girl by the series end, but at the same time, she's definitely not the same. At the end of the series, it's become more lightened, more fun, but almost just a modern girl. And I really do like that. It was a good idea to bring Caitlin back. Again, you can't almost forget that the character even existed. I'm happy they brought her back, and that's all done. Sandy becomes a businessman. He was originally a lawyer, but then becomes like a businessman, and that character evolving in the season was pretty great. Um, yeah. Julie's living arrangements, going back to a trailer park to live her old life, I found to be an interesting character. An interesting idea for her story. And you still, if it's almost to the point you feel sorry for her, but at the same time, you kind of feel she kind of deserves it a little bit, but you still feel sorry for her. At least I certainly do. But arguably, one of the best things to come out of this season was the whole when they finally graduate high school. I found that the whole episode to be really great, and of course, as we all know, it ended with the most tragic bit. This tragic bang. I also found this season to be a bit of a drag. Season 2, when 1, I just watched, enjoyed it. Season 3, I was feeling a bit of a drag, but not to the point where I was starting to hate the show. It was still pretty good. Overall, this season, if I could rate it, I kind of give it a 6. It became a bit of a, actually, no, correction. Yeah, no, actually, I'll still stick with a 6. It just became a little bit of a drag as the series went on, as this season. But it ended with such a big cliffhanger. It ended with such a shock. And sadly, I honestly thought that Marissa's character would never go out that way. That's why it was such a huge shock. But at the same time, it was been built up. We've been seeing what she went through in seasons 1 and 2 and 3 with the whole drug and hanging out with a bad crowd. Well, occasionally with shady characters. The fact that she would end up like that was shocking. Which of course is one of the main things of season 4. Which reminds me, season 4 really is not my favorite season. It was so much of a drag, and it just dragged. I was losing more and more interest in the show by season 4, which I'm glad that season 4 was its final season, because I honestly don't know how I could have even watched season 5. Overall, season 4 was people, trying to, the events of season 3 with Marissa's character, everyone getting through that. Here we get to see Ryan's father in season 4. But here, I kind of never wanted Ryan's father to show up. I mean, we've always heard of him, but really, he came out of nowhere for me. Of course, there was the earthquake incident at the end of the season, in the second last season. Really? Actually, in the third and second last episode of the season, the earthquake incident, I found to be really engaging. And Christine getting pregnant, kind of... I wouldn't call that exactly horrible, but I felt that the series really didn't need that. But then again, I kind of did like it. I got mixed feelings with that. I like it, I hate it, I don't care about it. You get those 3 mixed feelings with that. Also in this season, they developed Ryan and Taylor's love, like this sort of like love story, the couple. Now, how do I personally feel about it? I don't mind it. I really love it. I really did like it. However, if I could be honest, I would have liked Ryan to end up with Marissa at the end of the series, but with her gone, I felt that Taylor just kind of just fit. But it wasn't. But I also got to admit, Taylor taking over that role as sort of the Marissa spot, I didn't feel that it was to the point of being, like she's a character meant to fill in a character's spot. You get that in shows. I didn't feel that at all with Taylor, because she was introduced in season 3 and we got built up as a new character. And then with Marissa, it kind of makes sense we needed someone to take over a spot, but it didn't feel like it was forced. It came almost naturally. And of course, yeah. So arguably, season 4 not my favorite, but I give it a 5. It's not I wouldn't exactly call it an unwatchable season, but it's just a season that I always struggle to get through. And season 4 is a chore. It does have its moments. I will admit that. It does have its moments, but yeah, that's how I describe this season. Now, the final episode. I gotta admit, the final episode of this season is, for me, how all teen dramas should end. They should end gratefully. First off, what's the episode about? Well, after the earthquake, the whole everyone in the OC, everyone here is trying to recover from that incident, but also they're trying to prepare themselves for new lives ahead. And I kind of like that. Now, this picture you're seeing is a little hint to what's going to be in the show. I love the ending. It's so great. I'm trying to really not spoil the ending of these series, but I found it to be really great. And you do get a callback to the very first episode, which I liked. It was a nice touch. Also, Christine finally giving birth. I will admit one spoiler: Christine gets birth to her child, and of course what they do is she wants to give birth to the child in the first Cohen house, which I found to be a nice touch. And really just great overall to the series. Overall, I find this show to be just great, and this episode for me is a perfect example of ending your show on a high note. It ends with a bang, despite the fact how I personally felt about the season. I can't deny I really felt that the last episode of season 4 and the series itself was a true gem, and it's arguably in my top 10 best episodes of the OC. It is a truly great episode. And yeah. Now, I give the series, after all that consideration, I give the series 4 out of 5 stars. Seasons 1 and 2 were great. Season 3 was a bit wonky, and Season 4 was a bit of a drag, but I felt that Season 4 is worth watching just to get to the final episode of the series, and honestly, it ended with a bang. I was almost about to give this 3, but if it wasn't for that episode, it would definitely be 3 stars. But 4 stars is pretty good. I highly recommend watching it. You get a kick out of the first 2 seasons. Season 3 is wonky. Season 4, you will admit, is a bit of a drag, and with Marissa not there, you kind of feel her absence, but you truly give enjoyment out of this show. The OC, a true teen drama. You get drama, you got comedy, you got drama, comedy, and overall just interesting characters that evolve with the series. And arguably, my favorite bit about this show to this day is the couple Seth and Summer. Truly great characters, and arguably the great one, apart from Mr. and Mrs. Cohen, as you see those two there, the fingers I'm pointing to, arguably some of the best couples on the show. Seth and Summer, great chemistry there, and just they bring out the best in each other, in my opinion. And they do bring, although a little bit of the worst, but not too much, more best than worst. And I honestly just love the characters themselves. It's truly great. So that's it, my review of my first TV series review. I do plan to continue with more. Please write more down in the comments of what TV shows you want me to review. It can be from superhero shows to teen dramas, although to be honest, those will be the 2 main, and sitcoms. Teen dramas, superhero shows, and sitcoms. Those will be my 3 main focuses for this series. But overall, and depending on how long the series is, will depend on how long the video is. My own personal thoughts. But anyway, next time from our TV series review, we will be reviewing Arrow. Arguably one of the greatest superhero TV shows. Is it? Find out in my next review. Until then, so long for now, folks. So long for now.